Welcome to the 5th of our 7 spring programs of UVM's Osher series. The remaining programs for this season are on Killington, A Story of the American Dream, presented by Karen Lorenz, and Henry Ford and the Car That Changed the World by Ernie Clarihue. We would again like to share our appreciation of the Godnick Center for providing us with this great venue. And we're but one of the many activities that they have here. We have PEG TV filming today. They come for some of the events, and if you miss a program, you can often find it on the PEG schedule. Does this count as an annoying device? VINS's mission is to motivate individuals and communities that care for the environment through education, research, and avian wildlife rehabilitation, and operating New England's premier avian wildlife rehabilitation clinic at the Nature Center in Quechee, Vermont, since 1972. Today's program, the Raptor Roadshow, will take us with its resident raptors into their ecosystems and their habitat needs, range, and behavior in the wild. Who knows who we'll encounter? But our presenter will know. Liv Lemire is an educator on the Wildlife Ambassador Programs team for about a year. She studied environmental education at Warren Wilson College and had been an environment educator for nearly 4 years at both the Western North Carolina Nature Center and the Mass Audubon Wildlife Sanctuary. I will leave it up to Liv to introduce her raptor friends.
Okay, this looks right. All right. Gotta get my ears all situated. All right. Can you all hear me okay? Yes. Oh, perfect. Well, thank you, Debbie, for that perfect introduction. Yes, Vermont Institute of Natural Science. My goodness, excuse me one more moment. Testing this out. Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. So yes, this is the Raptor road trip, and I have here 3 raptors. Now, how many of you guys have visited us before at the Vermont Institute of Natural Science? Almost everybody. Perfect. Well, happy to see you guys out here as well. How many of you guys have an image that comes to your mind when you hear the word raptor? What's an image that comes to your mind? Snowy owls and other owls, absolutely. Hawks, a beautiful example. What else comes to people's minds? Eagles, the big ones. Falcons, the fast ones. And vultures, the underrated ones, in my opinion. Yes, there's lots of different kinds of raptors, and today we're going to take a bit of a journey through the United States. We are going to meet 3 different raptors. All of them are from different environments, and they each have different tools that they use to survive in their habitats. Now, in order to take any trip, we must first start at the beginning. So I hope you guys are okay. You guys all packed your extra layers, your overnight clothes, your toothbrushes. We're gonna buckle up in the bus and we're gonna head out, and we're starting off in forested New England. There's lots of different kinds of raptors that we have up in this area and deep in the forests. In fact, I think, since we're already starting, it's mid-afternoon, I reckon we should probably camp out for the night somewhere. Don't worry, I know a guy that'll let us stay out. How do you guys feel about glamping? Favorable? All right, perfect. Well, we can start up a little campfire. Perhaps we'll start talking, sharing some ghost stories. But as we're sharing our ghost stories, we should keep our ears out, because we never know when the inspiration of a real-life ghost may grace our presence. In fact, it's much more likely that we would hear this first bird they never get a chance to see them, even though they are found commonly in this area. So, give me a moment as I bring out our first guest. Does anyone recognize what kind of bird, generally speaking, I have right here, right now? Yes, this is indeed an owl. Any guesses as to what kind of owl? Yes, this is indeed an eastern screech owl. I take issue with that name, personally. I've never heard this guy make a screeching sound. That's about as screechy as he gets. But they make another sound, and it sounds like a ghostly whinny. They'll go, whoo, whoo. That is actually a territorial call that strikes fear into the heart of other screech owls. That is the origin of a lot of our ghost stories. What noises do ghosts make?
Is that full grown?
This is fully grown. He is not getting any bigger than this. He is 9 years old. So many people, when I bring him out, they think, oh my gosh, it's a baby great horned owl. Baby great horned owls, when they are 2 days old, are already bigger than this guy. But back to what I was saying earlier, what noises do we say ghosts make? They go, whoo. So next time you hear that noise, you don't have to worry about a ghost. You don't have to worry about a horse that learned to climb a tree, which I think would be equally spooky. That's a future bird. That's just this guy. They have another sound called a tremolo, where they go, doo, 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 doo. They hit one note over and over and over again. That's a more of a friendly call between mates or between a parent and child. So, back to how small this guy is. He is not the smallest owl in Vermont. The smallest owl in Vermont, that award goes to the northern saw-whet owl. This here is Miami. He weighs in at about 100 grams. Saw-whet owls weigh in between 50 and 75 grams. So, they are significantly smaller, but Miami is very small for an eastern screech owl. There's a couple reasons why he is so small. One, he's a boy. Males in raptors are smaller than their female counterparts. Females are larger. They're the ones that have to lay the eggs, defend the eggs in the nest. They have all the hard work that they have to do. The males are typically the ones that would go out and hunt, so it aids to be a little bit smaller, a little bit more agile. But there's another reason he's so small, and it's because he comes from Florida. This individual owl is part of the Floridian subspecies of eastern screech owl, and they happen to be the smallest. But eastern screech owls are found all up and down the East Coast, as far north as the borders of Canada, down into Florida, as far west as the Rocky Mountains. They come in a lot of different flavors. There are gray morphs. Miami here is a particularly dark gray morph, but many of them are a little bit lighter in color. And you can see our other eastern screech owl ambassador on this pamphlet that I have over here in the corner. You can see that's much more of a typical coloration for an eastern screech owl, but about a little less than half of them are red in coloration. They are bright red, ginger. Actually, if you ever come visit us at VINS, we do have 2 eastern screech owls on exhibit. One's a gray morph and one's a red morph. So, this guy, he is built to survive in the forest. What are some clues that he gives you that how he survives in the forest? How do you think he avoids predators? Camouflaged, exactly. You can imagine that if this little guy were in a hole in a tree, you could walk right past him, and you would never even see him. If he wanted to fool you even further, if he wanted you to be absolutely convinced that he was in fact a piece of bark and not a living, breathing owl, he would slick down all of his feathers to his body. He would throw up those tufts at the top of his head and squint his eyes shut and hold himself completely still in the hopes that you think he's just a piece of bark. That is how he survives. He is a master of camouflage. But if he were feeling threatened, he might puff up his feathers to be twice his size and do that clattering and screeching noise that you heard earlier. So there's a couple other things that he does to survive. When do you think he's often awake? Nighttime, exactly. This is an example of a nocturnal species. That's the reason why he was a little bit sleepy when he was exiting his crate just now. I interrupted his nap. My deepest apologies. But they are nocturnal. So you can imagine that he is not at the top of the food chain. We'll get to you, I promise. He is not at the top of the food chain, so that's how he survives, is he hunts at the dead of night. This is a species of owl that they perch and lie in wait. They use their camouflaging abilities to stay hidden, and they watch for something to come across their path. What sort of things do you think he would want to eat? Mice are definitely on the menu. He's eating little bits of mouse right now as I'm feeding him. You do not need to shake my hand. What else do you think he would like to eat? Voles, absolutely. There's lots of other things out there. Yes, bugs. Bugs would make up a big part of his diet. He could catch moths. He could catch cicadas. He could catch crickets and things like that. He can catch smaller songbirds, for instance. They can even catch bats. So, they are not known for flying for particularly long stretches of time. They tend to go from perch to perch, watching and waiting carefully just in case something else would try and eat them. What sort of things do you think he needs to watch out for? Other hawks, absolutely. Other owls is another thing that he has to watch out for. Things like barred owls, great horned owls, larger owls than he is could absolutely eat him. So it pays to be extra cautious before you just fly all the way across the forest. He has a couple other adaptations. Imagine it's the darkest bit of night. There's no moon, it's raining, he needs to hunt. It's too dark to see anything. How else do you think he hunts? His hearing, exactly. He's got a very powerful sense of hearing. Can you see his ears? Point to where you think his ears are. Some people are pointing towards underneath the fluffy stuff. Some people I saw pointing towards the top of the head. These, even though they are often called ear tufts, they have nothing to do with his actual ears. Another name for this is plumicorn. These are his plumicorns, and they help him disguise. So you can't tell where the owl ends and the tree bark begins. My goodness, I have a noisy crew here with me today. But Miami here, he has very powerful ears. They're tucked in right behind his gigantic eyes. Right in front of this dark ridge of feathers that you see, this is his facial disc. That is how he is able to capture so much sound. He can hear my heartbeat just by sitting on my glove. He can likely hear your toes wiggling in your boots. He can hear a mouse scurrying 75 feet away. That is how powerful his hearing is. He also, of course, still has his optimal raptor vision. Raptors, their vision is about 8 times more powerful than ours is. And as an owl, he has superb night vision. If you put your fists up to your face like this, that is how large your eyes would have to be if they were the same size as an owl's eyes. They take up 2/3 of the space inside of their skull, which means there's not a lot of room for anything else. But all those owls out there, they know just as much as they need to know to be an owl. Their eyes, they have significantly more rods than cones, more light-sensitive organs than color-sensing parts of the eye. And so they don't have great color vision, but they have the best night vision in the animal kingdom. Also important are his eyes are so huge that they are locked in place permanently by the skull. They are locked in place by what's called the sclerotic ring. Because his eyes are so large and heavy, they're actually tube-shaped. They are not eyeballs. They are shaped like cans of soup. That's how large they are. But that's not very convenient if you need to look to your side or if you need to roll your eyes at a bad joke that I tell. They move another thing. What else is that? Their heads. Do you guys know how far around an owl could spin their head? All the way around is the myth. If you ever see that happening in nature, please call an exorcist. That's an example of demonic possession. That does not happen in nature, but there's just under all the way 270 degrees around, which is the theoretical maximum. Again, I have never personally seen an owl spin their head that far around. I imagine it would be a little bit uncomfortable, but they can do so because they have more neck bones than we do. If you feel your vertebrae on the back of your neck, you might be able to count how many you have, but don't worry, I'll just tell you. As a mammal, you have 7 vertebrae in your neck. Here's a pop quiz. How many bones do you think a giraffe has in their neck? I heard it, 7. They are mammals, just like us. Mammals all roughly have the same amount of neck bones. What about a chipmunk? 7, exactly, you guys catch my drift. As an owl, he has 14 neck bones. So that's what allows him that extra flexibility. And he is a fearsome raptor. Don't let his size and adorable face fool you. Raptors are grouped together by their 3 characteristics. They have forward-facing eyes, they hunt with their strong, sharp talons, and they eat their food and tear it into smaller pieces with their sharp, hooked beak. So Miami here, he might wait, see a mouse scurrying across his path, pounce on it with his feet, and he might swallow it whole or tear it into smaller bits. Owls, actually, a lot of birds have what's called a crop. It's this extra pouch right here where the food goes first before it goes to their first stomach and then their second stomach. Owls, you skip the crop and you just go straight down to the first stomach and then the second stomach, which is called the gizzard. But owls actually have a weaker stomach acid than other birds of prey do. They cannot digest fur, bones, teeth. Do you guys know what happens to all the bones and teeth inside of a little owl? I saw you probably, yes. What is a pellet? How does it get back out of the owl?
I know it's reject material.
Well, there's 2 ways it could go out. So you have a 50% chance of getting it right. It goes back up the front, absolutely. They cast an owl pellet, they barf it back up. Actually all birds of prey do cast pellets. That's a fun fact. But the reason why you've never heard of anyone dissecting a bald eagle pellet is because in other birds of prey, you only get the fur that they haven't been able to digest. Owls, you can see the bones, you can see the skeleton, you can really examine what they last ate. So that's why it's much more common for schools and camps to dissect owl pellets. How many of you guys have ever dissected an owl pellet before, or at least found one before? Or your kids or grandkids have, absolutely. Yeah. So, this here is Miami, like I said. Miami is from Miami, Florida. We name all of our birds after where they come from to help remind us of the lives that they've lived before they came to live with us. Miami was just a little guy in his nest with all of his siblings. They nest in holes in trees, natural cavities. Just like your teeth might get cavities, trees eventually over time will form natural cavities, or perhaps a woodpecker or a squirrel makes a home for them, and then the owls will move right in. Unfortunately, the landowner that Miami's family lived on decided to cut his tree down, and they didn't realize who was inside. Luckily, they were able to scoop up all of the owls that came tumbling out. They were able to bring them to a local wildlife hospital down in Florida, and everyone got checked out, got a clean bill of health, except for Miami. Unfortunately, when Miami fell, he hit his head pretty hard, and he has severed the optic nerve to his right eye. So that is why, as he is looking around at you guys and taking in the world around him, you might notice that his pupils are asymmetrical. Sometimes he'll hold them differently. Sometimes he'll squint his right eye differently than his left. He's not getting any visual information from that eye. So, since he was so young when that happened, he hadn't even learned how to fly yet. And screech owls are actually a very visually reliant species of owl. Other owls, say if Miami here were a barn owl, they have extremely profound hearing. If he were a barn owl and he received the same injury, he might have been deemed releasable because he would have relied mostly on his hearing. But since he was so young, and since he's a screech owl, which typically relies equally on their vision and their hearing, they felt it would be putting him at a disadvantage to release him out into the wild. So they reached out to other nature centers, and we happen to have an eastern screech owl size hole in our hearts. And so he came all the way up to join us, courtesy of Delta Airlines. And he has been a fantastic ambassador with us ever since. All right, did you have a question, my friend, in the back?
Could you have the middle aisle here so we could see it closer? Yeah.
I am going to stay up front with him specifically because I can tell from his body language that he is not uncomfortable, but a little bit still taking in his surroundings. And so I will hold him up as high as I can.
Threatened by the other bird making that noise?
Is he threatened by the other bird making that noise? He lives just down the hall from all of these birds, so he's used to their noisy. He's used to his noisy neighbors. No, he is simply just extra aware of his surroundings. This is a lot of people. This is a big space, and so I can tell that he's not terrified, but he's also not 100% comfortable. So I want to respect his boundaries. Yeah, what's your question?
So he flew up here via Delta Airlines, but do they migrate naturally?
He flew on a plane, to be clear. But screech owls are a resident species of owl. They do not migrate. Most owls are non-migratory, so wherever they are, that's where they are for the year. Some of the exceptions are saw-whet owls. They are a migratory species, and snowy owls, but they are a little bit more, they're partial migrants. And so some years they may choose to migrate, other years they may not. So screech owls, they are built to survive in this area year-round. All right, I'll bring them on home. All right, any extra questions about Miami, the eastern screech owl? Yes?
Did he ever learn to fly?
He can fly. He often chooses not to. He's not the most confident flyer, but oftentimes if he's not already slotted to go on an outreach or to do a program, we might ask him to do a little bit of exercise, and so we might practice what we call glove-glove flights, where if I had a second person here with a glove, we would start off 2 feet away from each other, see if he would fly between our gloves. But again, he's not the most confident flyer. He's very slow. He likes to take his time looking around, both because of his visual impairment, but also because he is just such a small owl. They're not super quick regardless. And so he can fly, but again, he often chooses not to. Yes?
Is the mice that he's eating, are they boneless?
Are they boneless? They are fully boned. They are full of bones. What we do for them, so all of these birds that we have in our care, they do not eat live prey. The reason why is because most of them are in our care because they would not be able to catch live prey on their own, and we don't want to introduce the possible, what's the word I'm looking for? The possible negative consequences of, say, if Miami were trapped with a very feisty mouse that just was not giving up. We don't want any of the birds to become injured that way. We don't want anyone to get scratched. So our food arrives frozen, and we thaw it overnight. We will remove the guts for 2 reasons. One, that's the part that the birds would most of the time leave out anyway. Owls will tend to swallow it whole, but in our cases, it's just much cleaner for us to handle it gutless. So for our sake and for their sake, we remove the guts. If there were any possible diseases that might be in the GI tract, that helps get rid of those. And yeah, we don't have to scrub guts off of the walls. And we also don't have to handle guts. But yes, in his case, all of these education ambassadors, they are trained to step up on a scale in the morning. They are weight managed. And so we calculate how much food they should get for the day based on their target weight, which is the highest weight that they are at where they are still motivated to do training for food-based rewards. And so we'll calculate how much food he should get. We'll chop it up into little bits. So all that food that he just got, that's his diet for the day. He's got maybe 2 or 3 more pieces left that I'll use to put him on back home at the end of the day.
So will he have a pellet later on today?
Yes. Yes. They cast roughly 1 pellet per meal. All right, one more question before we meet our next bird.
This is just a little side corner. We had a screech owl for a year,
Mm-hmm.
and my wife did it with a car,
Oh.
and I got it out of the front fender, and then took it to the vets, and everybody could, but they had one broken wing, and doesn't matter. But we put it in the Christmas tree, and there he stayed
Oh, wow.
for a whole year.
Wow. Screech owls will take up residence near houses.
Once a week, my wife had to go to the local vet and buy a mouse.
Oh, wow.
White mouse. If you don't see a white mouse, you can buy a screech owl. The last thing you see is the tail like this.
Yep. I've seen him attempt to swallow a whole mouse, and then he gets about 2/3 of the way through, then he's like, oh. He's got the tail still hanging out. Wow, that's an incredible story. Screech owls will often take up residence near humans, and so if you want to encourage a screech owl to live near you, you can put up a screech owl nest box. It is a little bit too late to encourage a mating pair this season. Owls nest very early, but if you want to catch a potential screech owl pair that you want to encourage to live at your place next year, you can look on the Audubon's website for the correct dimensions, and you can put up a screech owl nest box. Okay, what's your question?
So Miami's in this little cage right now because you're explaining and talking about it. But when you bring Miami back to VINS, what is the environment that he lives in? Is it much bigger?
What is his environment that he lives in? Yes, so this is his travel crate, and even though it looks small, this is a cavity nesting species, and so oftentimes it's a struggle to get him back out of his crate because he loves it so much. His enclosure is, I don't know the exact dimensions, but he lives indoors since he is a Florida boy, and so he's not totally used to our Vermont winters, but he has his own space where he has a little house, he has little perches. It's about, if I had to say, it's perhaps like 6 feet by 6 feet, so it's lots of space for him. He's got lots of different multi-level perches. He receives daily enrichment every day. I believe his enrichment that he'll receive today will encourage him to take a nice big bath by giving him a nice extra big tub of water. So, he lives on his own. He doesn't have any roommates, and his space gets cleaned every day. All right, so I hope you guys all slept well on our road trip adventure. We're about to hop back on the bus. Now we're driving through the middle parts of the country. We're surrounded by agriculture. We're surrounded by the great prairies, open meadows, grasslands. But I encourage you guys, as we're driving through these long, open stretches of open spaces, to look for the birds on the power lines. Yes, we may see an occasional mourning dove, or perhaps we may see a robin hopping around on the ground, but you guys should keep your eyes out because you never know if one of those songbird-sized birds is actually one of the deadliest raptors in the United States. This next bird I'm going to bring out is 8 times deadlier than a pack of wolves. So please don't scream when you see him.
How do you calculate that?
I'll tell you. You may recognize this guy by his voice. He is indeed an American kestrel. So, do you know what kind of raptor kestrels are? Yes, they are falcons. This is the American kestrel, North America's smallest and most colorful falcon. This is Westford specifically. And when you asked how do we calculate how deadly they are, wolves, when they go hunting, they're successful about 1 out of every 10 times. They have a 10% success rate. Kestrels have an 80% success rate in the way that they hunt. Excuse me. You just had to wait until you were out on glove. So, this is a guy that spends most of his life out in the open fields and meadows. That's their preferred hunting space. Do you guys know the word for an animal that's active in hunting during the day? Diurnal, exactly. So this is a diurnal raptor, and there's some ways that he has to survive and hunt out in that area. Do you think camouflage is one of them? Not quite. He's a very colorful falcon. He's got blue on his wings and on the back of his head. He's very stripy. But those stripes on under his eyes, this is a bird that I will actually walk amongst you guys because he's pretty comfortable around humans. If you look at these dark stripes under his eyes, they are called malar stripes, and they, yes, sit calmly. He's hungry. These malar stripes help to protect his eyes from the harsh glare of the sun. It's the same reason why sports players will put dark stripes underneath their eyes. It helps to absorb the sun's glare. Malar stripes are present in all falcons, so that's a way you can identify falcons from other birds of prey. They also have some other things that help them out. If you look on the back of his head, do you see a jack-o'-lantern's face? He's got 2 little black spots. Oh, he's like, I want to look at you guys. On the back of his head, he does have these two false eye spots. As you can imagine, this guy is also not on the top of the food chain, and so he has to have some way to stay protected from other larger birds of prey. Perhaps things like Cooper's hawks might be after him. Those false eyes may not be enough to fool us humans, but they are just about enough to fool a Cooper's hawk, because Cooper's hawks and other birds of prey don't tend to like to go after birds that they think have already spotted them, prey that they think that's already seen them. So those false eyes on the back of his head would give him just enough time to perhaps notice he was being stalked and fly away. So what sort of things do you think he might like to eat if he's in a field or a meadow? Voles, moles, mice, absolutely. I'll tell you a little bit more about how this guy hunts, and that might also paint a picture. I mentioned that you might see them perching on a power line. That's true. You can spot them from their hooked-shaped beak and their very fluffy heads. But they also are very distinctive when they fly. This is a species of bird that hovers in the wind. They put their heads straight into the wind, and they use their long, angled wings in order to hover in midair. They train their keen eyes down onto their prey. Their eyes, like I mentioned, raptor vision, is about 8 times more powerful than us humans. Falcons, specifically, they have an even faster flicker fusion frequency than we do. So, if you imagine you're going to see a movie, you know that the movie has a certain amount of frames per second. We know that movies, they look like fluid motion to us, but if you were to slow it down, you would see each individual frame. They're just strung together so quickly that to us, it looks like fluid motion. If I convinced Westford here to watch a movie with me, he would see a slideshow. Their rate of visual processing is about twice as fast as humans. So they are able to notice when their prey is taking a breath. They're able to notice and process that much quicker than we would be able to. Once they've spotted their prey, that's when they tuck their wings into their sides and they dive. How many of you guys have ever heard of the peregrine falcon? Who can tell me why peregrine falcons are so famous? They are the fastest animal on the planet. Do you guys know how fast a peregrine falcon has been recorded going? More than 65.
120.
More than that, more than 120. Double 120, actually. 242 miles per hour is the fastest that we have been able to calculate a peregrine falcon diving. So that is why that's called the falcon stoop. Peregrine falcons are a bit larger than he is, and so he goes a little bit slower, but he can still dive at 70 miles an hour. He could pass your car on the highway. So once he's spotted his prey, that's when he tucks in his wings and he dives at 70 miles an hour. What sort of things do you think he's catching if he needs to fly at 70 miles an hour? Mice are fast, but they're not that fast. Other birds, precisely. This is a bird that could take down prey as large as himself. Perhaps a mourning dove or a robin that's hopping around on the ground. But they also eat lots of bugs. Similar to our screech owl, this guy can catch dragonflies, cicadas, butterflies straight out of the air. To do so, he would stretch out his long, skinny talons in order to grab his prey right out of the sky. Or if he is hunting a large bird, like, again, a mourning dove, he would ball up his talons into fists and punch the bird as fast as he could. This guy weighs as much as a stick of butter. Imagine if a stick of butter came flying out of the sky at 70 miles an hour and hit you on the head. He packs a powerful punch, and if the mourning dove is still alive even after being punched at 70 miles an hour, he has another secret weapon. As a falcon, he has an extra notch in his beak that's called a tomial tooth. Again, it's not a very good name. We have ear tufts, tomial teeth. Birds don't have teeth. It would look pretty freaky if they did. But that notch is the perfect size to slide over the vertebrae of their prey. They can bite the back of the neck, instantly severing the spinal cord. So, they are ferocious. So, this here is Westford, and like I said, he is a bird that is found in the open areas and open plains. They are found in Vermont. They are typically migratory, since it becomes a little bit tricky to catch mice and bugs in the wintertime. They don't have superb hearing like an owl does, who might be able to hear the mice underneath the snow. And so these guys would tend to migrate further south. But American kestrels are found in much of North America, all the way down into Central and South America as well. How he came to live with us specifically, Westford is from the town of Westford, Vermont. There is another wildlife rehabilitator out in that area, and one day she received an unlabeled package on her doorstep. She thought, that's weird, it's not my birthday, I haven't ordered anything. She brought her box inside, opened it up, and out flew Westford the American kestrel, who proceeded to land on this woman's head and beg for food, going beep, 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 beep. Now, what we suspect is Westford is a case of imprinting. Have you guys heard that word before? Imprinting? Yes. So, when he was just a little baby trying to figure out who he was, what he was going to make of himself in this big wide world, he was looking to who was giving him food to find those answers to those big questions. If he had stayed with his kestrel parents, he might have thought, oh, I get it, I must also be a kestrel. Someday I'll live in my own little cavity in a tree or a nest box. They live in very similar sized boxes to screech owls do sometimes. I'll hunt on the wing, I'll catch insects, maybe have a mate and chick someday. But Westford, he saw people feeding him food, and so he came to the very logical conclusion that he must also be a little human. So in his mind, he would grow up and go to school, pay taxes, get a job, all those very fun human things that we do, and there's nothing we can do to convince him otherwise. I can tell he's pretty comfy around you guys because, a little body language tip, do you see these feathery bits under his chin? We call that his beard. They are nice and fluffy. When he came right out, you may have seen him go and like really fluff up all of his feathers. That is rouse. He roused his feathers. That's a good sign that he's very comfortable. He thinks we're all just a bunch of humans all hanging out on this lovely afternoon together.
And somebody's gonna feed him.
So, exactly. And, this is a nice perch to stand on. Occasionally he gives me snacks. So he is, again, one of our most well-traveled ambassadors. He is about 9 years old this year. So does anyone have any questions about Westford, the American kestrel? Yes, you in the back.
If they can dive that fast, how do they stop without crashing?
How do they stop without crashing if they can dive that fast? Well, they are built for that speed. They have, I don't know the number for a kestrel. I don't know if it's ever been recorded, but peregrine falcons, when they go that fast, when they dive, they have the same exact hunting strategy where they hover and then dive and then either grab their prey or punch it. When they pull out of their dive, peregrine falcons resist up to 25 Gs worth of force. For reference, we are currently experiencing 1 Earth gravity, 1 G. If you go on a roller coaster, you might experience between 3 and 4 Gs. Pilots start passing out at around 8 or 9 Gs. 25 Gs is the record for what a human being has ever experienced, and that guy experienced it for 1 second, and he lived to tell the tale. But peregrine falcons, when they pull out of their dive, that's how much force they are resisting. We don't know the exact number for kestrels. They're a little bit less studied than peregrine falcons, but they have a very similar anatomy. So we actually, when we designed our airplanes, we designed them with a falcon's evolution and anatomy in mind. If you look, he has these 2 little nostril-looking things at the top of his beak. Those are called nares. They are a dual saliva duct and also a way to breathe. Inside his nares are what's called tubercles. They are little cone-shaped bits that help to divert air so that when he is diving at 70 miles an hour, he doesn't inflate like a balloon. Peregrine falcons have the same thing. And so when we designed engine turbines, we modeled them after peregrine falcon and kestrel tubercles. So we're still uncovering all of the ways that kestrels and falcons are the way they are, how they're able to survive those magnificent speeds. They definitely have very sharp angled wings, so they are able to hover in place, dive at those speeds, and then slow themselves down. So, however they do it, it's working for them. Yes?
Is that a jayhawk? Is that what a jayhawk is?
Jayhawk.
Jayhawks don't exist.
An old name for kestrels is sparrowhawk. That is before we did some genealogical testing, and before we discovered that falcons and hawks are actually incredibly distantly related to each other. If you look at hawks and eagles, they're very similar, genetically speaking. Eagles are just big hawks. And then owls are even somewhat close to those guys as well. Falcons are on the other side of the family tree. The closest living relative to falcons are parrots. So that's where we ditched the name sparrowhawk. You may still find some old field guides where they are referred to as sparrowhawks, but in order to alleviate confusion, the more common name for them is kestrel, which is named, it's an old French word meaning to rattle. That call that you heard him do in there, that sounds like he was going, killy, 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 killy. In the wild, that would be a alarm call for a American kestrel. For Westford, he does that when he is hungry or if he sees an umbrella, his worst fear. So, assuming that there is no umbrellas in there, he just wanted some attention. So that's where the word kestrel comes from. It means to rattle. All right, I'll go on ahead and I'll bring him back home. This is a bird that can fly also. If you ever come visit us at VINS, you may notice he often flies during programs for us. He saw the food I put in there. There we go. All right, any final questions about Westford the American kestrel before we meet our last bird? All right, so we've made it all the way through the open plains. I brought you all to our final destination, and that is the hot, dry deserts of Arizona, of Texas. We are in the Sonoran Desert. So this last bird, I'll work on bringing out, and we'll be able to see more about how does a raptor learn to survive in the desert. Yes. Oh, yes, he's got plenty. This is Chesterland. Does anyone recognize what kind of bird Chesterland is? Yes, this is indeed a Harris's hawk. Now, the word Harris's hawk doesn't really tell you a lot about them as birds, does it? We met a screech owl, which is, although they are named after a sound that they make, it's not a totally accurate sound. Even the word kestrel, we know, comes from a sound that they make. Harris's hawks, they are named after Edward Harris, a man who was a friend of John James Audubon, who went around painting North American birds. And Edward Harris gave John James Audubon some money for his operations, for his travels, and so as a thank you, J.J. Audubon named some of the birds that he found after Edward Harris, but he didn't really talk to the locals first before naming these guys. Luckily for us, they have other, more descriptive names. They are also called the bay-winged hawk, the dusky hawk, or the wolf hawk. Why do you think this guy is called a wolf hawk? We met a bird that is deadlier than a pack of wolves. Anyone have a guess as to why this bird is called a wolf hawk?
They hunt in packs.
They hunt in packs. That is how these guys survive in the desert. You can imagine that there's not a lot of food available to you out in the desert. There's tarantulas, scorpions, lizards, but are you going to survive off of those? Harris's hawks are the only socially living and hunting raptors in the animal kingdom. They are often in family groups, not always, but when they are matriarchal. So the female is the boss. She would take a mate. She might take another mate. You never know what's going to happen to the first one, after all. And together with those two mates, they would have chicks. They would raise those chicks. The older siblings would stay with their parents for up to 4 years, which is ages in the bird world. And they are living and hunting together on average with as many as 7 hares hawks, but with as many as 12. And they are able to work together, taking down large game, like black-tailed jackrabbits. Now, when I say jackrabbit, you may have an image in your head of the eastern cottontail bunny, the little fluffy guys that we have here in Vermont. I want you instead to imagine a 10-pound waist-high hare that could kick a 1.5 pound bird like Chesterland here to the moon if he were working by himself. By working together, Harris's hawks are able to surprise the jackrabbit. They like to hide under all the sagebrush in the desert. And so a Harris's hawk might surprise the jackrabbit. And if it becomes a chase scene, a relay race, when one hawk gets too tired, that's when another hawk swoops in and takes its place, continues the chase. When that hawk gets tired, same thing. They are replaced by another able-bodied hawk. They are able to take turns chasing down the rabbit until the jackrabbit becomes so exhausted that they collapse from sheer exhaustion. So that is how they are able to take down such large game out in the desert.
How much does he weigh?
He weighs about 1.5 pounds. Yes. Birds are surprisingly lightweight. Their bones are hollow. The technical term is pneumaticized bones. If you were to look at a cross-section of their bones, it would look like little spiderweb fillings. I know, there's no more food in there. I'll give you more later, don't you worry. That's how they're able to stay aloft. Their bones are much lighter. If you took off all the feathers off of Chesterland here and put them on one side of a scale and had naked Chesterland on the other side, the feathers would weigh more than he does. So, that is how they're able to be so agile and to fly so well. He is built for life in the desert. You can see he's got a bit of an angry expression on his face. He does wake up on the wrong side of the nest most mornings, but he has that as an extended brow ridge to help protect his eyes from the harsh desert sun. Also, if you look at his talons, his feathers end very high up his legs. He's got short shorts on, and they keep him on all year round. His talons are incredibly long and thin, and that allows him to do a couple things. One, it allows him to perch on saguaro cacti. These birds often nest on cactuses, and they can perch on them without getting pricked because of their very thin toes. And they are also able to use those very long talons, their very long tails, long wings, in order to dive through the air and catch desert songbirds straight out of the air. So, they are very much built for life in the desert. Their feathers are pigmented with melanin, the same pigment that makes human skin lighter or darker. That's a way to help that they also stay protected in the harsh desert sun. Their feathers are protected against things like sunburn, for instance. Now, this is Chesterland. He is from Chesterland, Ohio, which you guys will notice is not the desert. Chesterland here specifically was born for the sport of falconry. Now, how many of you guys have ever heard about falconry before? Couple faces in the audience. Falconry is an ancient tradition. It goes back thousands of years, originated in the Middle East. And falconers, instead of hunting with a tool such as a gun or a spear, bow and arrow, you build a relationship with a wild bird of prey and you hunt together. Falconry didn't start with Harris's hawks because these guys are found in the Americas and falconry started in the Middle East. But when falconers came to the Americas and they discovered this hawk that already understands how to hunt as a member of a pack and how to share the fruits of their labor, they became a very popular choice for the sport of falconry. Not only do they already understand those things, it's in their nature to share the rewards of the hunt, they are also You can train multiple Harris's hawks to work together to take down even bigger game. That little wind-up motion that you saw before he pooped, that is the way that hawks keep their nests very clean. They shoot their poop over the sides of the edge of the nest. So that's his way of keeping his space nice and clean. And, it's good to keep your nest nice and clean. So, Chesterland here, he was born in captivity for the purpose of becoming a falconer's bird, but we often say at VINS that he was hatched into the wrong career. He has a very low prey drive. If you ever come visit us at VINS, we often fly our Harris's hawks over the audience. So we'll do those outdoors. If you ever come and visit us on a weekend in the summer, you can join us on our Hawk on the Walks, where we take Chesterland here specifically out to our canopy walk, and he flies amongst the trees between the gloves of the handlers. He is constantly surrounded by chipmunks, by tasty songbirds, and he has never once tried to go after them. Instead, the songbirds, they will practice a behavior called mobbing, where they gather around him and try and bully him out of their space, and he is scared of them. So they knew that he wouldn't make it big in the falconry world. He was donated to our education team by a former volunteer so that he could demonstrate his flighted abilities and so that we could cover and discuss a species of raptor that is so unique and one that you would never find in this area. And so he has stayed with us now for 25 years. Does anyone have any questions about Chesterland? How old will he get? Well, he specifically will live forever, but we hope to have him around up until his early to mid-30s or so. Harris's hawks are actually a very long-lived species of raptor in the wild. Because they live in their family groups, they're able to rely on each other. And so even in the wild, he could reach between 15 and 20 years old. Most raptors, their average age, their average life expectancy is significantly lowered by the fact that most don't live past their second year of life. Something close to 80% of the many different birds of prey die in their first 2 years. So Harris's hawks, since they live in their social groups, they are able to really depend on each other, and so that really helps boost up their life expectancy average in the wild.
Who are his roommates?
He lives alone. So we mentioned that they live in social groups out in the wild, but they are also very territorial, with other clans or groups of Harris's hawks. So he lives by himself. He sees his trainers as members of his pack, and so when we fly him out in the outside or during our programs, he is very good at following us. He's very good at checking in and making sure that each one of the pack is sticking together as a group. He might call out to one of us if we're lagging behind, for instance. So he gets lots of exercise. This is actually a unique chance for you guys to see him not at VINS. We have another Harris's hawk on our educational team. Her name is Paige. She is 7 years old, and she is doing the program at VINS today. So he could come on out and meet you guys on the road here because he's such a great finale for this program. So you guys can get a chance to understand how a bird lives in the forest, in the grasslands, in the desert. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm interested in the mobbing that you mentioned. I often see like a red-tailed hawk or something being chased by two smaller birds and
Yes.
bombed by two smaller birds.
Yes.
Is that considered mobbing?
Yes. So mobbing is exactly what you described. It is the behavior of smaller songbirds all grouping together to chase a particularly larger bird of prey out of their midst. And so you'll often see, if you hear a large ruckus of a bunch of crows or chickadees together, that's a really good sign that you should look out and see if you can see a red-tailed hawk, a bald eagle, an owl. They will join forces together. Even birds that don't usually really get along together, like for example, oftentimes crows and other smaller songbirds are at odds with each other for bird feeders. For instance, crows are significantly larger. They may use that size to their advantage. Same with blue jays. Blue jays get a reputation for being bullies in the songbird world because they use their large size in order to kind of bully smaller songbirds out of the way. But if there's a red-tailed hawk in their midst, They are putting aside their differences, they are gathering together in a group, and they are yelling at that larger bird of prey, oftentimes swooping, diving, hitting their heads until they leave the scene. Some songbirds are even known to ride on the backs of larger birds of prey and pecking at their heads until they leave their designated area. There's some really funny pictures out there. If you look, I believe I saw one of a red-winged blackbird riding a red-tailed hawk. Again, pecking its head as it went. So it's a very effective way to chase out the larger birds of prey. Even if, say, that bird might not typically go for a smaller bird of their size. Yeah, it's a really interesting phenomenon, and it's a great way to see if you can spot a screech owl, for instance. Sometimes when we have I imagine that the songbirds that live at VINS are among the most brave in the world because they're constantly surrounded by huge predatory birds of prey, and they have long since learned, oh, those guys aren't going to bug me. They're just going to exist and get food from their handlers. So, but sometimes I'll be outside with a bird of prey, and all of a sudden I can hear all the chickadees coming closer and closer and closer, bullying the bird that I have on my glove. Yes?
Are they preyed upon by larger hawks?
Harris hawks are pretty solidly at the top of the food chain in their area. The things that are most affecting them and their populations in the wild are just human development. And so if we get rid of their perching sites, for instance, by cutting down, they do nest or perch on some trees or cactuses. They will tend to perch instead on power lines. And so electrocution is actually a fairly high risk for Harris's hawks because that's often their only option for perching is on power lines. Otherwise, they are also known to scavenge along roadsides. They will search for carrion, and so since they are frequently found along roadsides, cars can be a huge impact as well. When they're young, they might have to, or if they're eggs or their nestlings, they might have to worry about crows getting the eggs. They might need to worry about coyotes. But once they're adults, and especially if they're a part of a large social group, they're pretty solidly at the top of the food chain. Not many things would go for a Harris's hawk in their environment. Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you have any eagles at VINS?
Do we have many eagles? We have 2 resident bald eagles named Wyoming and Minnesota. We have a resident golden eagle named Arizona. And we also have, you may have seen, we have 2 wild bald eagles that have chosen to nest on our property for the 2nd year in a row. You can see we have just set up a webcam, and you can find us on our website, and you can watch and live stream the eagles. We have nicknamed them Windsor and Dewey, based on Windsor County, and they are right across from Dewey's Mill Pond. Again, we wanted to have some names that would be descriptive and follow the same naming conventions that we use of naming them based on the place where they're from. Ooh, that was another rouse. He's feeling pretty comfy. And also interested in his shiny equipment. But yeah, look on our website. You can see Windsor and Dewey. They have a single egg that they are incubating currently. Yes. Yeah, you had a question in the back.
2 questions. Do most or all raptors eat reptiles? And also, how do vultures fit in?
Ooh.
What distinguishes a vulture?
Okay, so 2 questions. Do most raptors eat reptiles? And how do vultures fit into the equation? So reptiles are definitely on the menu. It really depends on the size of the raptor, the area that they live in. So desert species would definitely go for lizards. Species that live closer to marshy areas might go for turtle, maybe not turtles, that would be a little bit extreme, but some snakes, perhaps. Yeah, so other reptiles, absolutely. It really depends on the individual. Red-shouldered hawks are a great example of a bird of prey that eats a lot of different reptiles. They eat venomous snakes by just biting the head off of the snake and then slurping down the rest of the snake. So they're pretty cool in that sense. Again, it really depends on where they are or what they are. All raptors are carnivores. They are all meat eaters, and so that's the thing that unites raptors. And the thing that separates raptors from other birds that eat meat is raptors specifically seize their food with their feet. So that word raptor means to seize. That's why things like hawks and eagles and owls are all considered raptors, but penguins and great blue herons are not, even though they eat lots of fish. And then where do vultures fit in? There is some debate about whether or not vultures should be classified as raptors because they have some of the raptor adaptations, like they have the sharp-hooked beak, they are carnivores, they have forward-facing eyes, but their talons are not especially strong. Actually, after I put Chesterland away, and if you guys want a chance to take a look up here and see what we have, I have a vulture's foot, and you can see it's structurally different from some of the other birds. They don't seize their prey with their feet, they tend to find stuff that's already dead. But if you're going to decide if a raptor is a raptor based on how much they scavenge versus how much they hunt, bald eagles primarily scavenge. They scavenge a lot of things that are already dead. But no one's arguing whether or not they are considered raptors or not. So there's a bit of a debate. But at VINS, we consider them part of the group. All right, more questions?
I live in Route 7, in Pittsburgh on Route 7, and until a couple of months ago, there was a locust tree right down on the corner of Plains Road and Route 7, and vultures would hang out there at night, about 5 o'clock in the evening. You'd have, 10, 15 of them, and they were wonderfully creepy. I don't sitting there, and they'd be through the night and gone in the morning. And the tree was cut down. I don't know where the vultures are now, but it was such a wonderful
Vultures,
all these guys sitting up in
yep.
12 or 15 of them.
Vultures are very social. You'll often see them sunning as a way to disinfect their feathers. The UV rays will help clean their feathers off, or they'll get nice and dried off that way. That's really cool, really special. Yeah, vultures are very underrated, but they're very, very cool.
You'd be driving by about 5 o'clock in the evening, and they'd start coming in for the evening, and it was really interesting to see, though I don't know where they are now. They have not found them.
Probably. I hope they did. All right, I'll take one more question.
You had mentioned that 80% die before they're 2.
Mhm.
Is that common with birds of prey, and why?
Yeah, is that common? Is that 80% survival or death rate? Is it usual? Yes. There's the reasons why most raptors pass away before their second year is based on the fact that many raptors, if they don't live in a social group, they grow up, they're kicked out of the nest where they're old enough, and then they have to learn how to hunt by themselves. Some things are naturally born instinctually, but they still have to learn where to hunt, how to hunt, the best way to catch food. If you're competing for other predators, if you're a smaller raptor, you have to watch out for the larger raptors. They have to worry about things like cars and power lines. One threat that's facing birds of prey right now and lots of different animals is something called rodenticide. So it's rat poison. If you ever have mice or rat problems on your property, some folks will put out mouse poison, and then the mice and rats eat the poison, but they don't die right away. It makes them very sick, very slow-moving, very easy prey for a bird of prey to swoop in. And if a bird of prey consumes a mouse that has come into contact with rodenticide, again, they themselves will experience the effects of the rodenticide, even if they themselves didn't directly ingest it. So there's actually a bill that was just recently introduced in Vermont to ban the use of rodenticides. It harms and kills birds of prey and other animals that feast on rodents. So I encourage you guys to check that out, and in your own personal lives to avoid using rodenticides. If you ever have mice and rat issues on your property, opt for snap traps or have a heart traps, the ones where you catch them live and you can release them on the fields of your enemies. So yeah, the statistic is a little bit different depending on different species, but it's all roughly, it's all roughly for those same reasons, where just, it's a lot to learn as a young raptor. If you have to migrate, you have to learn where to go, all those things.
He has really good hearing.
He has pretty good hearing, absolutely. He's perhaps not as good as an owl's, but...
This just came on a little while ago, and I noticed he was really interested. I mean, he must have felt the change in in the atmosphere and everything.
He's very in tune with his surroundings, absolutely. He's getting a little bit heavy, so I'm going to work on putting him home. You wouldn't think that a 1.5-pound bird would get heavy, but after a while, it's a little bit of awkward position to hold them in. All right. If anyone has any final questions, feel free to come on up and ask them. I'll be here. I'll be able to answer your questions. You can feel free to come and touch and explore the biofacts that I have here with me today. Otherwise, I would like to wrap up and say thank you guys so much for coming on out and supporting and visiting us. I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Thank you guys so much.